setup button is yellow, and so is the button, calculate J button. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and set up the button. Put a little space between these just for organization, and it's gonna be this dot setup button. Okay, you should be seeing a pattern here. Everything looks pretty much the same, just the type changes, and that's good code. Copy, paste that here. The text on the button, leave that empty for now. It's going to be calculate total. Calculate total. That's what the button is going to do. And the bounds for that is going to be 204. And it's 48. I'm looking at my notes to make sure I don't write the wrong number. 126. These you have to pre-calculate. You have to sit down and figure out where you want things. So I'm going to run this again. And let's see if we see. Alright, so here's my button. It does nothing though. Okay? I could type in 200, 100, and it does nothing. Okay? So that's not something that we want this app to do, but for now it does nothing. And again, we just want to use nice simple numbers here and so on. Up, we would think that everything is ready and good to go, but that was unit 2. In unit 3, we want to do what is known as an event handler. I'm going to take out this line border from my imports because I didn't need it. You could see that my code is all set up now and ready to do some calculations. But the calculations is where we need to actually focus now because this is new. And what we're going to do now is we're going to add what is called an event handler into our code, or a action listener. Something, a listener that listens for the button click. And when the button gets clicked, that's when the action is going to be performed. So we're going to have to add a listener to this button, and we're going to add listeners to the top 2 fields, not the totals fields, just the top 2. So to do that, we have to set up some more methods. So, and when you write code, you write pretty much write methods. So let me do the button listens for a button click. That's what we want. We want something that listens for a button click. So here we go. It's going to be private. It's going to be an action listener. So now you might get an error when you type this, but we're going to take care of it after. Calculation action listener. Alright, so you see this little error here that says the action listener is not imported, and so we put our mouse on it and we say import the action listener. Alright, so we have that. Then the next thing we need to do is to write the method that actually is going to be performed when the button gets clicked. Private void calculate J button action performed, and we're going to take in an action event. You should get an error under the action event because it's an event from the API that was not imported. So I'm put my mouse on it and say import that. Okay, so I have these 2 methods. In combination, these 2 methods are going to be used to do the button click. So we're going to do that. So the button action listener is actually a very cumbersome thing to type. So you got to be careful here. So I'm going to do action listener. I'm going to call it listener equals to a new action listener. Okay. Semicolon. This is a little weird because this action listener here that we have, it's something that we need, but it's known as an anonymous inner class. Anonymous inner class. Because you see those little curly brace here, okay? that's as if we were making a whole new class. So I'm going to put these back so they could be somewhere behind here, close here. All right, so why it has an error under here is because it's saying there's a method that you need to do. There's a method that you need to do, and that method is called public. It's void, and it's action performed. And it takes in an action event. The name of the action event is event. This is the name of the object. All right, so I'm going to go ahead now and return the listener so that the error goes away up here, because that's why it's screaming about it, saying, hey, you didn't return the listener. We made the listener. This is the guy who listens for the button click. This guy. This is the action he's going to perform. So right now he's doing nothing when the button gets clicked. What are we going to do? This action here. So we tend to do them in tandem like this. Of course, we got to get rid of the word action event. So this is called a pass. Pass the event to this guy who then performs the actual action. Okay? So we're separating the listener from the action itself. This listener performs this action, and the action is going to be written separately down here. We'll do this all the time, every time we do this, which makes sense. It's actually the easier way to write your code. So the action listener that we're talking about here is going to actually take the value from the field, multiply them, and get the answer. So I'm going to say int number of patterns is going to be equal to integer.parseInt. Let me just stop right there. I'm going to put a semicolon. And then int number of items. You should be realizing that how am I writing my code here? Copy. Yeah, I'm doing the same thing again. So this is how many they put in the number of cartons, and how many did they put in the number of items. And so we have to go ahead and get the information that the person put in. So it's cartons jtext field that get me the text. So this line of code says, get the text the user put in the cartons jtext field, turn that into an integer, and save it into this integer, and it's 4 bytes. I'll say that again. Get this. The person typed some number into the text field, turn that into an integer, type conversion. That's what we did earlier. Save it as 4 bytes in this variable here. I have to do the same thing here, but this time, if you're thinking, you say, oh, you're getting that one from the items one. Items jtext field dot get me the text. So now I have what the user typed in the cartons, and now I have to find the total, which is the multiplication. So int total is going to be this guy times this guy. Okay, so I took this stuff off the screen. It was a string. This is a string. Okay, get text. Text is a string. Turn it into an integer to do the calculation. But now I want to put the total back on the screen. Well, I can't just put the total back on the screen. I have to actually change it into a string. So string total string is equal to string dot value of. And I'm going to put total in here. Remember, we were doing this earlier on. Turn it into an integer, do some calculation, turn it back into a string, and then we could put this on the screen. So total result jtext field dot set your text to the total string. See, you can't just put numbers on the screen. You have to put strings only. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead now and add this action to the button. See, my calculate button in the create user interface does not have an action yet. So I'm going to go ahead and add him. Calculate J button. All he is, he's all set up, but he has no action on him. Dot add action listener. Specifically the action listener. So in order to add the action listener, I'm going to do this. Copy and put that in here. This is the action listener that this button is going to perform whenever I click him. So let me go ahead and run this, and we would see nice little app comes up. And if the person has 20 shipments and 10, the product of that, if we have 10 items in each carton and we have 20 of them, should be 200. See? Nice and easy. There's a problem here. There are some mistakes in this app. This is where we start to talk about errors. When you were typing earlier on in these projects and you had an error, it was known as a syntax. Now, forget a semicolon, you get a red line, you get something over here, it tries to tell you what your error is. It's called a syntax error. If you look closely, you see it says syntax error. You missed the semicolon. Or maybe I spelled the word wrong, and you get an error under here. It says, hey, this is not going to run because there's a syntax error. Syntax errors are errors that you can see as you're typing. It puts a red line there. That error suggests the app will not run. There's another type of error. There's only two. Another type of error called a logic error. Now these are tougher to find. So a logic error is an error where the code actually runs, but the result that you get is erroneous. It runs, but we get the wrong result. Let me show you what I mean. There are a bunch of them here. So if app runs, let's say the person put in 30 here and 5 here, and they run the calculation. You see 150. Great. What if the person chose to change this and said 10? I know it's a subtle error, but at this point right now, it looks like it's saying 30 times 10 is 150, which is wrong. Yes, you will say, well, they just have to hit calculate again. But the user shouldn't have to try to remember if they hit calculate. Like if I change this now to 15, it looks like 15 times 10 is 300. The user has to, did I hit calculate? Did not hit calculate? That's not good app. That's not a good app. You can't have the user guessing if they did something or they didn't do something and the result's different. And that's a very subtle logic bug. That's a logic error. We want to fix that. Or there are some more errors. What if the person did not know this was for a number and they type a T? Look what happens. See? App crashes. Let me show you. It says, hey, this is a T. That's not good. We can't multiply T. That doesn't make any sense. And so if you see all this stuff happening, you crashed your app. Okay, so then how do we fix that? Well, that's what we want to do. And make sure that they work right. So let me go ahead and fix the error, that the subtle bug that happens when the person types a different number and it looks as if the value in the field is the wrong total. So I'm going to do one where it listens to the keyboard. Okay, so we got to listen to the keyboard too. Or just like I was listening for the button click, I'm listening for the key pressed. So here we go, private key listener. See? And I'm going to create the text fields key listener. You should start seeing a lot of things looking the same. You know, if I look at the button, start seeing action listener versus key listener. And the next one I want to do is the actual method I'm going to call when the keys get pressed, just like when the button was clicked. So I'm going to call this the clear total field. And what we're going to pass in? Key event. At this point, you should start seeing similarities, okay? In the button, it was called an action event, but with the keys, it's called a key event. Okay, so the key listener clearly needs to be imported. I'm doing the same thing as if I did the buttons. Different words, same process. And okay, to import the key event. All right, so in here, I have to go ahead and create a listener, but this time it's going to be a key listener. I'm going to call it listener as well, because they're all listeners. And if you think, you may think new key listener. Incorrect. New key adapter. That's the only place where it gets a little different, because over here it was just new action listener. So down here you may be tempted to think new key listener, but it's not. I normally like to line these things up nicely, and I'm going to keep that as a theme. Just like the action listener up here that has a semicolon, I'm going to go ahead now and yeah, it's saying, hey, you didn't do one of the methods that you need to do for this, okay? So we need to write in here public void key pressed. See, that's the name of this event handler. It's a key pressed event. Key event. Now you should realize that did I not import? So my key adapter, just like up here, needed to be imported, and everything is all set up now. It's showing an error right now here because it's saying you didn't return anything. So let me return the listener. All right, so just like the button was set up to do calculations, the key is now set up for when you press the key, this is going to happen. So all we want to do is one line of code. And you may say all that for just one line of code. Yes, but we want to consider the process and how we write things properly. So we're going to write things properly even if it's just one thing. JText field that set your text to nothing. I'm clearing out the totals field. So this is the method gets called when the key gets pressed. Like I said, very similar to the button. When you're finished writing all this up, make sure you check both and see how similar they are. Yes, the action in the button is different because we're doing a different thing. We are actually calculating something. But here, we're simply just saying when the person types in any other fields, clear the total. That's going to remind the user that they didn't press the calculate button yet because there is no total. So I'm going to go ahead now and add this. Okay, let me copy it here. I want to add this to my text fields, not the totals field, just the first two. So let me put a little space between total field. So I want to add this guy, okay? So let me just leave it over on the side here, just so that I could use it. I don't want to type all of this. I'm just going to copy that. And I'm going to say dot add key listener, not action listener now. And this one also, copy that. I'm going to say dot add key listener, not an action listener. Action listener is for buttons, key listener for the keyboard, for this text field. All right, the reason I put this over here is because I want to copy this and put it inside of each one. Because when the keys get pressed, that thing is going to turn to, that total field is going to turn to 0. Let me just run it again just to see. Annoying. So 200. Let's go with 20. Keep numbers small. All right, so it's 200, right? Now let's say the person said, oops, it was supposed to be 15. See what happened there? Total's gone. If I press 15, now the user knows you didn't press calculate yet, because otherwise a number would have been here. Bug fixed. But what about that thing when I put 15T? Ooh, still a bug. Okay, that's all right. It's that bug. Is we're going to check out this action. The problem is this action. Right now, this action runs no matter what the person types. Right? We get the text and we turn it into an integer. We can't turn T into an integer, right? We don't want to turn a T into an integer. What we want to do is we want to make sure the person don't type a T. Well, we're going to let them type whatever they want, but if it's not a good thing, we're not going to do it. So how do we do that? I'm going to put all these next to each other because we're going to wrap these in something what is called a try and catch. So I'm going to bring this down. You want to follow me and write it just like I'm doing it. So I'm going to try. Hit enter, open and close. That's another block. It's called a try block. Code occurs in blocks. A method is a block. A class is a block. A try is a block. Catch. Exception. Error. See how those blocks look? And the exception here is an uppercase E. Exception. It should be an uppercase E. Exception error. Okay, so this is a nice little block here. So the way this works is the code that goes in the try is whatever you want to do. And if there is a mistake, this runs. It catches the error and it says something is wrong. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut all of this out. If you're on a Mac, it's going to be Command and X. On a Windows, is Control. I put everything in my try. Let me kind of clean up this method here. I have too much space down here. Okay. So that my try does everything. Now my catch needs to tell me if there's a mistake. I'm cleaning up my code to make it nice and neat. So my catch needs to say there's a mistake. Well, let me just run this for now and see if it goes wrong. What if the person types in 20 and 10? 200, nice. What if they change this? Oh, wonderful, wonderful. They put a 15, didn't calculate it. They made a mistake and they put 20T. No problem. No total, no nothing. No error. Why? Because this was not possible. This code is running and it's doing nothing right now. So we're going to end. And generally, you're going to do this starting off. And eventually, we're going to get a little more sophisticated. So J option pane dot show message dialog. Now, first one is null. Then we got a message. I'm leaving empty strings there just to show you the format. J option pane dot error message. Now, this is called a static call. The name of the class dot the method. It's called a static call. So what goes here is message and title. So please enter an integer only. Sometimes I get these two mixed up, so we'll run this and see. Sometimes I have I think it's either the message and the title or the other way around. So that's all right. We'll run this and see if there's an error. So I could show. I'm gonna go ahead and make a mistake and put YM. See? Message, title. This guy ran because we can't multiply Y times M. That doesn't make any sense. Okay. Except enter integers only. So I'm going to put an integer here. No. You got integer only. So this might be a little misleading. So what we could do is we could write this a little bit more specific by saying in both fields. In both fields. Okay, so now I run this. What we get, so I enter E and says, hey, please enter an integer in both fields. Okay, so I did that. 12 and let's say 10, and then I get 120. Nice. One more bug before we wrap this up. I can change this. That's not good. 12 times 10 is not 3455. This field is known as an output field. A field that has the solution that comes back after the calculation. The user should not be allowed to type here, because then they could put any answer. And that's not good. That's another bug. Not a red line. Not my code can't run. It's a very subtle logic bug. Back to that field, which is my text field, the total, this guy. And I'm going to say right beneath it, hey, set editable to false. I don't want the user changing the text in there. I want my total field not changeable. So 20, 10, 200. Oh no, I meant 15. Beautiful. That goes away. 300. Can I change this? No. Can't change this. Can I put a T? No. Please enter integer both. You see the total's gone. Let me change it back. Put 30. Yep. Working perfectly. All my errors are gone. All my bugs are fixed. Inventory app. Let's recap. Let's recap. Get all the things you need. All the things you need. Figure out where they need to go. So figure out all the bounds, the sizes, and all that before you start writing. I did that before, so I was able to just type them in. Borrow some code. Some of the methods that you're going to use are already made in projects you did before. And since that's true, you can use them. Nothing's wrong with that. That's perfectly fine. Makes you finish things faster. Make some new ones. Ones that you don't have. Borrow one that you have. Change things that you don't like. Set up everything in the create user interface by calling the right method. If it's a label, call the label. If it's a text field, call the text fields. Look to see if you have to add any listeners. You have to add any listeners to these things. Look to see if you want to make things not editable. If they're output fields. Content pane is first, window is last in the create user interface. If you want to add actions, you're going to now use this because it's already made. So let's say we're going to write another action listener down the road. You can simply use this. All you got to do is change the action. You could change the name of the method and all. You could say, okay, instead of calculate button, I'm going to call it submit button because it's actually submitting something. But the setup here is the same. You may take all the code out to try, put new code in here, change the message and so on, but this setup here is for a button click. Same is true when the person types in the text field. This setup here is for the text field. Whatever you want to do goes in here. It gets called here when the person types in the text field. Be careful with this one though, because it's going to run every time you type in the text field. The main method is the only one we need to start the app and stop the app. This brings us to the end of the inventory app. Let me run it one more time. Take a quick peek. Job is to walk through this carefully, make very clean notes. It's working nicely. I put an N here. No, that's not going to work. And the person cannot type in this field. So again, we're at the end of the inventory app.